Hey everybody, this is Colin podcasting about real estate and welcome to show number 4. Today I've got the pleasure of interviewing Eric Odum. He is the president of ROI Commercial. Eric's been involved in real estate for 30 plus years. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's a lot of experience in financial services and banking, residential real estate, commercial real estate. He's also the host of the Invest Florida show, which is a great podcast that's been running for the last 6 or 7 years. I've had the honor of being a guest on that show a couple of times. And during today's show, Eric and I had a great chat that encompassed a lot of different things, including the lessons Eric has learned by trading and owning businesses and servicing clients through multiple economic cycles, multiple property booms, multiple recessions. He talks about how COVID has affected the commercial sector, whether that might be office, retail, hospitality, and the industrial sectors. It is affecting them all very differently, and some of them are going to bounce back quicker than others. His insights into those are very interesting. We talk about his advice for young people entering real estate, his advice for regular investors that want to get involved or maybe research the commercial market. So even if you have little knowledge or interest in commercial real estate, it's more interesting than you might think. It's very accessible in a lot of ways. There's also a lot of lessons that we can learn from Eric's experience in the real estate market that can apply for the residential sector as well. So I hope you enjoy this show. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Eric, how you doing? Good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Colin. It feels like it's been years, brother.
It feels like it's been years. I wish we see each other more often than we do, Eric. I was privileged to be on your show last week and again 4 years ago, the Invest Florida podcast. You're pretty well known around the Tampa Bay area and beyond for that. But for people who don't know you, can you tell us a bit about yourself? Give us an introduction.
Sure. Eric Odum, been in commercial real estate in Tampa Bay area starting in 1988. So I've been around for a long time, first as a lender. We started doing syndicated real estate, which is securitized real estate in 2003. And started the brokerage, it's ROI Commercial Property Brokerage, in 2007, I think. So it's been 13 years since we started our brokerage and property management firm. And we also have an investment advisory, and we're soup to nuts for our clients, helping them to basically get a check in the mailbox at the end of the month. We do all the manual labor for them on the management of their properties and try to help them find a deal and then place their money and manage it and deliver a check to them.
That's awesome. You've got some fantastic experience. I know there's people I speak to that are pretty successful, but they've only been in the market maybe 8 years and they've just known one market cycle. I've been doing this 16 years, since about 2004, and I saw it going up and crashing down and then flying up again. And here we are in COVID-19. You've seen another couple of cycles in addition to that. I mean, do people learn anything from all these cycles? Is there anything to be learned from them? I mean, what's your experience telling you?
Well, look, I'd like to say that I've been smart and I've recognized these coming every time. I'd be a liar if I did. I think the last two, I've sensed. This one, the COVID one, of course, I didn't recognize it was going to be anything like COVID. But I started seeing some frothiness in the market towards the end of the last quarter of last year, and started to liquidate some things and get some cash ready. But of course, there's no way I knew that this was going to happen, but I was starting to get concerned about the valuations at the end of last quarter. In 2008, it's the same thing. We looked at 2007 and we thought 2008 is going to be down. Maybe we'll do 50% of what we did in 2007. And then 2009 would be half what we did 2008. Of course, what the reality, because we were dealing in syndicated real estate back then, it went to zero. That was something I completely got blindsided by. Of course, we had a little blip in 2001. The two previous to the COVID were financially engineered disasters. And then, of course, 1988 really was a tax disaster. 1986 Tax Reform Act, the commercial real estate caused the recession, where the previous, the ones that we've had from 2010 and 2008, and then this one, and then 2001, they were financially engineered. 1988 was tax engineered.
It's like the savings and loan crisis was back then, right?
Yeah, what happened was the limited partnerships they had gave the passive tax write-offs that people were buying real estate. It made no fiscal sense. And then when they pulled the rug out on those, all those deals that were in the pipeline, which were there at a peak, they came crashing down. And S&Ls, the savings and loans, were up to their eyeballs in that. And each one of these things, you ask what I've learned that they're not the same. Everybody anticipates, well, what happened in 2008 is going to happen in 2020. What happened in 2008, the same thing is going to happen in 2001. None of them have been the same. None of them. They're all different drivers. They're all different results. The Federal Reserve and the Treasury have made a point publicly to prop this market up. So the markets aren't really like they would ordinarily be if you're having a complete laissez-faire market. We don't have foreclosures. Fundamentally, really, technically, we don't.
No, it's a freakishly weird market we're in now, and I agree with it. What can you learn? I mean, I guess if you use real estate as a helter-skelter, grow at all costs kind of business, you're really going to crash and burn when the market turns. And if you're more of a kind of tortoise kind of guy, slow and steady wins the race, and you're kind of keeping your reserves and your liquidity strong at all times and kind of saving money or building passive income streams or diverse income streams while the going is good, and you're not just reinvesting everything and doubling down, then you'll hang out there. You certainly don't want to bankrupt yourself every time there's a market crash. You want to be a little bit more careful than that. And I've always kind of considered real estate a get rich slow scheme, but I've seen guys whizzing past me before only to smack up against the wall when the market changed on them and they were just over leveraged and had nowhere to go. But this is very different. Nobody's experienced this at all. And like you say, we're in a market that's being propped up by a tidal wave of government money, which is preventing asset prices from falling. And they're making laws to prevent asset prices from falling, like stopping people from getting foreclosed on, stopping people from getting evicted, forcing banks to give forbearance on loans. I mean, how on earth is the market going to return to normality? How on earth is an investor going to get a deal anywhere when this passes? I just don't know. I mean, do you have any ideas?
I don't know. I mean, it's all unprecedented. You can't evict. We're already starting to see some of the banks putting pressure on owners, but if they can't evict, like, what are they supposed to do? They're just supposed to subsidize their tenants. That's just not the way. That's not reality. But most of the foreclosure judges they're slow playing all these, even though in commercial there's no laws against eviction. Same with on the tenant side. But for all practical purposes, they're slow rolling these. So I don't know, man. It seems to me the logjam gets broken when the eviction market opens up. And hopefully it's done at the same time, because then you're going to have a wave of foreclosures too if you're not allowed to evict, but the banks are allowed to foreclose. So, I mean,
got to be both in tandem, right? And if the government withdraws its continuous support at the same time, I mean, that's a tricky balance. They don't want to have chaos on the streets either. If there's a decline, they would rather it's a managed decline. But that's really a fantasy. It's not really something you can control, is it? I mean,
yeah. And we went to a lot of our banks, our customers' banks, and some of them were very forthcoming right away to say, hey, y'all have always been good. There's plenty of equity in there. We're not worried about it. We're not going to come take your property. Why don't we just switch over to interest only until the smoke clears? And if you've been paying on the loan for 12 years, well, you get a 15-year more. It's not much there anyway. So all of a sudden, it's not really a big deal for those folks. The folks that have purchased in the last couple of years, the interest is still pretty high on their principal and interest payments. But, you see those types of scenarios, they're never going to get foreclosed on. And the bank's just going to let them go. They've got plenty of cash flow. Maybe they're taking a little bit of a hit in the near term, but I don't know, man. Your guess is as good as mine. The whole thing's bizarre to me. Let's just hope it ends sooner rather than later. I mean, obviously, it's probably going to be at least another 9 months to a year. We're looking at the same situation.
Where do you think the opportunities are going to be? I mean, you mentioned that you had the foresight to liquidate some stuff, and you clearly have some kind of powder dry for when the next kind of opportunities come along. I mean, do you see certain sectors which are just not going to recover for a very long time, and others which are going to bounce back quickly?
Well, I think the biggest opportunity in business that we deal in quite a bit is the restaurant retail area. There are a lot of, I don't have to name them, you guys know which ones they are, that have been hanging on. They're not well populated. They're not really doing a lot of business. They were struggling before COVID. COVID's the final nail in the coffin. I've been a lender or in the real estate business, as I said, since 1988, first as a lender. And through the entire time that I've been in real estate, what we've noticed is finding first and main locations on retail has always been the most challenging thing. And all of a sudden they're falling off the tree. It's really unprecedented. So you're starting to see the Steak and the Shakes and the Applebee's starting to, this was a trend before. I think as long as there's 40,000 cars driving in front of that location, I cannot imagine that is not going to be a highly valuable asset. But even though Applebee's is getting pushed out, if the lender's not wanting to foreclose on the owner, how motivated are they going to be able to sell? I don't know. But it seems to me that's going to be the area.
And even if they did want to sell and somebody else wanted to buy it and put a different type of business there, it's not easy for them to get financing right now in the commercial space, is it?
No, it's true. It's going to be somebody with deep pockets who, your hedge funds that have a lot of money to be able to do that sort of thing. What's happening also in the restaurant business is their typical Chili's of 4,000, 5,000 square foot space. That's not what's happening in a restaurant anymore. So these out parcels in a retail center, the properties are out by the road in a traditional retail center. Nobody wants 5,000 feet. They want 1,800. They want 2,500. So they're going to have to split it, and there's going to have to be an investment made back into the space. But maybe you can now have a Starbucks and a Jimmy John's. And maybe they'll take two. So this is what you're going to end up seeing. They're going to be repositioning of these really nicely located assets.
Wow. So talk to me about how people can get started in the commercial real estate space. People that might not have, I'll ask you two questions. One is kind of mom and pop investors that might have some rental properties and have some liquidity, maybe a couple of $100,000 in cash, but they're not experts. How do they get involved in the commercial space? And then the second question is, you're just a 25-year-old kid out of college, you like real estate, but you don't have much money and you want to get started in the business and kind of grow in the business. How would they do it?
Let's tackle the young kid. Let's come be a broker, because the skills that you're going to learn being a broker are what's going to help you do the analysis and finding the deals, to learn how to find the deals, and then you're going to earn money at the same time. But real estate's beautiful because it's insider trading without being punished for it. It's not illegal for insider trading. So you know what's going on with particular markets that other people don't. You're able to find out that, this person, they're maybe a little hungry to sell. You make that telephone call and you're able to find that deal. You know that there's an arbitrage situation because you know of a tenant that wants to fill that space. You can take that deal on yourself. And if you're a broker, you're a young agent coming in, you can, if you find a brokerage that will do that type of business with you and will help raise the assets for you to participate. This is a great way to do it. If you're that more experienced person that's had the portfolio of 20 single family homes and you don't want to deal with trash, toilets, and tenants anymore, usually the first step for these guys is to look at the triple net properties. Look at Starbucks, look at McDonald's, look at Dollar General stores. You can probably invest for starting at about $650,000. The equity required might be $150,000, $200,000. And these are true, as close as you're going to get to mailbox investments, passive investments. There's no such thing as a passive investment in real estate, but you're you're not getting calls on the toilets and the trash because the tenant is responsible for that. You might get a call once a year because the roof's leaking, but they're responsible for the rest of the property. So you'll see more experienced investors start sniffing around on the triple net deals, and they're good places to start. When you start moving into larger asset classes, like let's say you want a public center, that's big boy world. That's $5 million in equity. You're going to have to go into the commercial mortgage-backed security market to find $15 million of debt, or $16 million, whatever it is, $12 million of debt. And not many people are carrying that around in their pockets. So it ends up being syndicators or large institutional investors that buy these properties. And they're raising funds to be able to go in and participate along with them. They're usually investing along with them, but buying these assets. It's very rare that you see individual investors come in and buy Publix locations. Or what's hot is medical right now. Medical's cap rates are very low, which means that per dollar that you're investing, the return's lower. And you see things like Baycare. I mean, people will jump over high buildings to buy Baycare because they're a good tenant. Tampa General Hospital. People love to see Tampa General Hospital or Baycare as a tenant, but your returns are going to be like this,
Right.
So people can see me like this. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, if you want, ultra stable tenants, high quality A grade buildings, you're getting a low return. If you want some scruffy,
that's right,
retail plaza with tattoo parlors and whatever else that you might be able to kind of spruce up and class up a bit over a few years, you can obviously make some money. No different than buying a single family home and modernizing it and selling it on. You can do the exact same thing in commercial, right? Yeah,
commercial is all about tenant quality. It's all about location and tenant quality. If you have the U.S. government as well, maybe the credit on U.S. government's deteriorating recently, but if you're wanting to buy a U.S. government property, the spread on that, there's going to be a spread between 10-year treasuries, the bonds, and that same equivalent year that the lease would be for the U.S. Treasury. It might be 50 basis points difference, 75 basis points to add the additional risk that you'd be taking for owning a piece of real estate. Then you go on the other end. If you want to buy an Applebee's right now, being Applebee's, there's a lot of them going out of business. You can buy them at an 8.5 cap.
Okay.
So it's just a range. It's the tenant. It's all about the tenant in commercial real estate.
That's it. If you can keep that tenant there a long time, they are paying back that loan for you. They're paying down your equity. You're getting the tax advantages. You're getting the inflation hedge. If you're lucky, you've locked in an interest rate for 5 years or 10 years. But once that tenant leaves, you can be in big trouble. It might take you 6 months or more to get a tenant in. And you mentioned before that, Starbucks really left a lot of people in the lurch during the last crisis when they just decided they weren't going to do it. And you have
600 locations. Yeah.
And you have
600
big
locations
companies
they
doing
had
that
not
all over now.
Yeah, they hadn't even taken possession of, and they decided they weren't going to take possession. So they're not riskless. People need to understand that. They just tend to carry less risk than your typical retail.
Yeah. When they're occupied, it's pretty plain sailing for the most part, but when they're not occupied, it's a whole other thing. You're not just re-tenanting it in 4 or 5 weeks like you would a 3-bed single family house.
Correct. Yeah. But good location is good location. They don't grow on trees. We're just taking back some T-Mobile stores right now, and they're in great locations. T-Mobile's going through a merger with Sprint, and they're eliminating some of their stores. But we'll take them. I mean, there's always going to be somebody that wants to be in front of 50,000 cars a day.
Yeah, no, that sounds like an opportunity. If you could put a business in there that's going to have a high demand, somebody that'll sign a long-term lease, that could be a very nice thing to own as a mom and pop investor or a participant in a larger fund that might be managing 20 or 30 or 40 of them. So I like that.
Yeah, okay. And I know that you'd asked me about previously about the investments, of what the investment market looks like. Office, I'd be remiss not to talk about office a little bit because it's been beat up tremendously for a good reason. If there's one thing that I can say, whether it be retail, office, whatever, people that are betting against people being people are going to lose. And if you think that the only reason that office space existed is because people hadn't discovered Zoom, you're wrong. And yes, there's going to be a movement towards people working from home more, but that doesn't mean they're going to be working at home completely. What's going to happen is what we're seeing already from our clients is that they're losing their culture when they're sending people home, and that's just not that's not sustainable. And people think that this is the first time we had video teleconferencing. We had Skype in 2008.
Yeah.
Microsoft was coming out with its first round of video conferencing, and a lot of people were sent home in 2008 too. And the whole gig economy started in 2008. That was the primary driver, was the last downturn. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to see maybe there's one more day or two more days people don't have to drive in. They'll let people work from home because they find some productivity out of that. But you can't have people, in most instances, work from home 100% of the time. What we saw, and this is why you've seen a rise in shared workspace from 2013 on, is that companies didn't have that connection with their employees anymore, and employees were leaving. And when they left, even though they were excited about going home, when they left, they said they didn't feel connected anymore. So companies making big moves towards trying to reopen office spaces and get into shared workspaces. And people thought office space has been dead and they think it's going to die again. That's nonsense. We were at our highest occupancy rate in my lifetime in January of this year.
Right. I agree with you. I mean, I've been working from home for 10 years, but I do agree with you. I think this remote working kind of companies are getting away with it with existing employees that have already been embedded in the company culture. They can work from home for a few months and the company won't suffer a whole lot. But if you try and expand and bring in more team members that they don't have that face-to-face interaction initially, they're not going to perform as well. And even just creating a company culture and having creative ideas and spontaneous meetings and that's where the magic happens, and that's usually in an office space. And at the complete other end of the scale, if you're a company that has a lot of lower end kind of admin workers, they're nowhere near as productive working from home. I mean, they generally you need to keep an eye on them. I have friends that own businesses that are suffering from exactly that their people are at home and their productivity is just falling like 70%, even though they're theoretically kind of logged on from 9 to 5. If they're not in the office, they're just not working anywhere near as much. So just at the lower end and at the high end, there's a lot of magic you're missing in the office space, and I totally agree that will come back once we've figured out a way how to do it, whether that's post-vaccine or whatever. And there's a lot of life left in office yet, and I personally would have no issues investing in the right kind of building either.
It's just going to take some time. I mean, there's going to be this period until they find a mitigating drug for this disease. And then people who are accustomed to working at home, starting to find their way back into the office, and where is that balance going to be? So there's going to be a weight on the office market probably for several years, but it's not going away. We heard that before, and we realized that there's too much human social aspect to running a company that it's just that's not going to change. You can't teach people from Zoom. And employees will never be honest with themselves, let alone their employers. The employment market is artificially repressed right now. Also, people are sitting there at home and they're going, "I'm going to kill my kid. I'm going to kill my dog," and I don't think my boss cares about me anymore because. And I'm not having lunch with Mary anymore, and she doesn't even return my phone calls anymore. They're already starting to feel the seams of coming apart. But how quickly is it going to come back? And we just don't know. I mean, we'll have to see. But a lot of people are out there and they're just going, they're going to blame their job when the reality is the situation of like sitting sequestered in their home with their dog and their kids. That's what's driving them crazy. It's not their company.
Yeah.
You get people back together again. They start remembering why. Oh yeah, I really kind of like Mary. I had lunch with her, and I missed these lunches. And this is, believe it or not, this is what keeps companies together like a family. So.
It is. And I'm jealous of all these psychology majors out there because they're going to make a killing. They're going to make a fortune from healing all these emotional wounds when everybody leaves their house and starts interacting with people again.
Oh, for gosh sakes. Just real quick on the other asset classes, industrial, not experiencing any downturn yet. In fact, we're seeing a pretty strong activity there.
Mm-hmm.
Retail, hospitality is going to pop back really quick. We've already talked about retail. We talked about office. So I think we pretty much hit most of the office classes, or so much of the property classes. If there's anything else you want questions about, I'm happy to answer them.
I guess you're right. I mean, any business that was weak before this crisis hit is just going to fall quicker. Any
Sure.
crappy little hotels, crappy restaurants, struggling businesses, whatever it was, telephone shops that nobody was walking into, they're going to get taken over by somebody better and more efficient, and that probably will accelerate quicker than it would have done because of the crisis, and that's just going to present opportunities. But the hotels that had something special, and the restaurants that had something special, and the offices that had something special, they're going to do just fine. And like I said, industrial is killing it because there's so many people ordering stuff from warehouses and everything else online now that's a fantastic industry to be in. Same with data storage. If you own stock in data storage companies, or if you owned a huge building where people could kit out a data storage company, you're making a fortune. You mentioned before in another conversation you had a buddy who operated a cleaning company that was doing really well the last few months as well.
Yeah, people think that it's just Amazon that's doing well with industrial. That's not true. I mean, I can tell you two of my guys, one of them has a speaker repair company. It's parts. And he doesn't repair them, he provides the parts. And people are sitting home right now and they've got all this time on their hands because they're not commuting to the work, and maybe they're not working, maybe they're working part-time, they got cut hours, whatever. But they're realizing they've got this spare time and they're thinking, wow, my sound system just is terrible. This speaker blew a while ago. And so he's selling a lot of that stuff. And he's selling a lot of it down in the islands. So these companies in South America and the islands started shuttering, people started improving their sound systems. And so he's going gangbusters. Another guy who does janitorial supplies, doing a lot of deep cleaning, local company. He needs twice as much warehouse space as he has right now. His sales are like 20 or 30% increased year over year. And it's because there's a lot more cleaning going on right now. And it's not just Amazon. This is across the board that companies are seeing explosive growth in the industrial side. I just don't see that changing. I have another company I'm dealing with right now. They're e-cars. People don't want to go onto the car lots right now. They still need a car. They just don't want to go onto the car lot because they're afraid of, salesman COVID breath coming over and infecting them and their family. So these cars, the people sell over the internet, they're shipping the cars from, collecting them somewhere in the middle part of the United States, shipping them, distributing them throughout if they fix them up and clean them, and then parking them in these warehouses where people will come and pick them up after, a week after they buy them. They'll clean them and then turn them over to the new buyer. But it's not just Amazon. There's industrial pressure across the board in all areas of industrial business.
Yeah, no, I know. Whether it's Walmart or Publix or ordering your groceries, or even eBay is having a great COVID. And I kind of thought eBay was just fallen by the wayside, but they've had a fantastic start to the year as well. So anything that makes it more convenient for people to have goods and services delivered so they don't have to go and walk into other buildings or drive to other places is going to do well. And like you say, people feel better when they know that their restaurant or hotel or office or airport is twice as clean as it used to be. Whether there's any scientific merit in that is a total other thing, but people are paying for it.
It's driving sales.
That's it. Now listen, we could talk about this stuff all day long, and it's very interesting. But when you're not involved in real estate, Eric, what kind of hobbies do you have? What do you do for fun? What do you do to relax? You're living in a really nice part of the world here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a cyclist. Ride about 2,500 to 3,000 miles per year. Also a pilot. I don't do as much of that as I like to be able to do, but love the outdoors. Florida's great. It's a great place. Love to travel. Of course, not doing much of that right now. I'm a citizen both of the UK and of the United States. So
I can tell from your accent.
Yeah, I have. I probably sound close, like a Glaswegian, right?
No, a bit of Scottish.
When we when I have my partner together, we're doing our show on the Invest Florida show. He's from South Africa. And of course, the joke, bad joke, continues to run is that he's got the Southern accent and I have the Northern accent. So
that's funny. Yeah. No, I guess the British passport can come in handy. It's no harm having dual citizenship. And that's super cool that you can fly your own planes. I mean, what kind of restrictions have been on that? If you want to take your kind of small plane up in the air for a spin cross county or cross state, what's that been like? Or have you just not been using it at all?
Not really been doing much of it. COVID's not affecting it at all. If you want to take it out of the country, obviously, there's restrictions in most of these. We used to fly a lot to the islands, and from what I understand, there's a lot of the 14-day quarantines now if you come in from the United States, particularly from Florida. It's kind of a hot spot right now. So
yeah. Well,
but I've not been flying much recently, so that's something I need to pick up on again. I'm looking at some sailboats.
Cool.
Potentially living aboard one for a while, so we'll see how that goes.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, once the social distancing easing's done, maybe you'll invite me out for a bit of fishing. That sounds fun to me.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And unless you have anything extra you want to add before I ask how people can get in touch with you, Eric?
Yeah, obviously, ROI Commercial Property Brokerage. The website is ROI real.estate. There's no .com. We have our extension is .estate, so it's ROI real.estate. And you can find me there. Also, the Invest Florida show, which is at the investfloridashow.com. We've been doing that show for 6-7 years now. We talk about real estate in Florida. We try to talk about markets and asset classes. Most of it's residential, but we talk about all asset classes there, including the traditional commercial spaces. So investfloridashow.com or ROI real.estate, best place to find me.
Perfect. Well, I'll make sure I put both those on the show notes. And I've been listening to the Invest Florida show for quite a few years. And I agree, it is about investing in Florida partly, but there's nearly all of the episodes have stuff in there that's relevant for people who want to be learning about real estate in any market. So I encourage people to tune into that. But yeah.
Colin, appreciate it, buddy.
All right. Thank you very much. Hopefully I'll see you soon, Eric. Take care, man.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, there you have it, folks. That was Eric Odum, President of ROI Commercial and host of the Invest Florida show. I really enjoyed that conversation with him. It just goes to show you how deep and wide the real estate market is. A lot of us, myself included, are often guilty of getting a little bit of tunnel vision, thinking the only important thing is the residential real estate market, the single family home market. But real estate is much bigger. It's much more important than that. And, the commercial sector impacts the residential sector and vice versa. So I enjoyed getting those insights from Eric. And like always, I'm going to have another guest on next Thursday. So tune in for that. I appreciate your support so far. If you're able to share this show with others you think might find it interesting, that would be terrific. If you're able to take a minute to give it a review or a rating, that would be even more appreciated. We're trying to get the word out. But I'm going to leave it there for now. This is Colin Murphy signing out of show number 4. And remember, stay safe, stay active, and stay connected. Bye-bye.